GMAT online versus test center. I have heard success stories and tales of test day disappointment from both. But for most students, one option is better than the other. I'm Erika with Target Test Prep, and in today's video, I'm going to help you decide which is right for you, taking the GMAT at home versus in person. First, some important facts. The online or at-home GMAT was introduced in 2020 in response to the COVID-19 global pandemic and has stuck around since. Today, around 25% of test takers take the GMAT online versus in person at a test center. So not a majority, but still a significant proportion. Importantly, the online and in-person tests are the same. They have the same questions, the same algorithm, the same score scale. So, in theory, you should perform the same, whether you take the test at home or in a test center. But that's not necessarily true in practice. Let's talk about some of the key differences between the two testing options and how they can impact both your testing experience and your eventual score. First up is scheduling. In-person exams must be scheduled in limited time slots at a designated test center location. If you work pretty standard hours and live in a major city, this shouldn't prove too much of a limitation. You just have to plan for travel time and arriving around 30 minutes early for check-in. However, if you work atypical hours or live far away from any of the designated locations, scheduling at a test center can range from inconvenient to impossible. Online exams are much more flexible. You can book any time slot that works for your schedule, and you can take the test from the comfort and convenience of your home. You still need to arrive 30 minutes early for a check-in, but there's no travel time to consider beyond walking to another room. Verdict: online exam wins on flexible scheduling options. Next, let's consider tech issues. Tech at test centers is generally reliable and optimized for test software. Test centers are paid to keep things operational, and by and large, they do. Tech for online exams is as reliable as your personal computer and internet connection are, which for most people is not that reliable and certainly not optimized for the specifics of online testing. You can improve your experience by ensuring you have a wired internet connection and by booting other users offline, but these methods aren't foolproof, introducing issues like lag, lack of screen responsiveness, delayed start times, and even full exam crashes. Now, these aren't particularly common, but even if your tech issues aren't catastrophic, on this test, seconds matter, and just as importantly, your headspace matters, and tech issues can mess with both. Verdict: test center is the superior choice for avoiding tech issues. In a similar vein, let's discuss proctor intervention. Like with tech, people operations at test centers are usually a pretty tight ship. It's the same routine in the same space every day. You can raise your hand to get assistance from a proctor if needed, but beyond that, they're unlikely to interact with you while you're taking the test. With online testing, there's more the proctor needs to do to ensure academic honesty. Room checks and subsequent environment changes can once again lead to delays in start time, and interruptions during the exam can both disrupt your workflow and eat into testing time, as the clock will not be stopped. Common causes for at-home proctor interjections are touching your face, or moving your mouth, or leaning or looking off to the side of your workspace, things a lot of people do subconsciously while they're thinking. Verdict: for reduction of necessary proctor intervention, test center wins once again. Next up is scratch paper. In person, your scratch paper is not actually paper. It's a spiral-bound notebook with 5 double-sided sheets of laminated, legal-size grid paper given to you with a fine-tip wet erase marker. This is quite a bit of space for scratch work, probably enough to last you through a given section, but if you do run out of space or if you want to be proactive between sections, you can request a new notebook from a proctor. Working without an eraser takes a bit of getting used to, but in general, doing scratch work in the notebook is pretty similar to working on a regular old sheet of paper, plus the added benefit that the grid lines are helpful for keeping your work neat and organized. Online, your scratch paper is still not actually paper. You are permitted to use a physical whiteboard no larger than 12 by 20 inches, or 30 by 50 centimeters, that can be either single or double-sided. This whiteboard and associated dry erase markers are something you need to purchase and practice with on your own, adding another element to your test day prep. 12 by 20 is kind of a cumbersome size, but it's also nowhere near enough room to do all of your work. At most, you're looking at 40% of the scratch space as with the test center notebook, and far less if you have a smaller or single-sided whiteboard. This leads to a lot of erasing, which takes time. The whiteboard also must be completely plain and cannot feature a grid, making it somewhat harder to organize your work on. Now, there is also an online whiteboard option for the online exam, but I generally advise against it. As an instructor, I have done a lot of online whiteboarding in my time, and without the use of a stylus or tablet, both of which are disallowed in the online exam, it is far less functional than a regular physical whiteboard. But even if you do use the physical whiteboard at home, the verdict is the same. It's test center with a bullet for the better scratch paper experience. Another consideration is testing environment. Once again, part of the test center's responsibility is ensuring an environment conducive to test taking. So generally, test centers are quiet and free of disruption. That said, there is some disruption inherent in the nature of a test center. There will be other students in the test center taking different tests at different times, so you will hear the clacking of other test takers' keyboards and notice test takers and proctors quietly entering and exiting the room. I once had a student who took her exam at a test center next door to a construction site, but this is certainly not the norm. The other main element to consider is that the test center is unfamiliar. Now, you can partially simulate this in your prep by taking your practice test somewhere public, like a reserved room at a library, but there's still a pressure that comes with being in a test-specific environment. For some test takers, this is focusing. For others, it's destabilizing. When you test online, your testing environment is your home. This has upsides and downsides. On the one hand, your home is familiar. This can lead to lower stress levels leading up to and during the exam. On the other hand, your home comes with its own set of distractions. Neighbors, family, pets, everything in the room around you. Some test takers find it hard to get into the testing frame of mind without a physical separation from their day-to-day life. Additionally, there's the necessary environment prep to consider. Your testing space is required to be fully enclosed, with doors visible, windows covered, desktop cleared, bookshelves within arm's reach emptied, wall items with writing removed, and other people or animals kicked out. Depending on your workspace, this can be challenging and time-consuming, and making changes at the last minute can throw off your game. Verdict: which testing environment works for you really depends on your personal preferences and your individual at-home setup. Finally, let's talk cancellation risk. Score cancellation is not a particularly common occurrence in general, but it is particularly low risk at a test center. If you don't do something obviously disallowed, like bringing unauthorized items into the test room or talking to other test takers, you are probably in the clear. Online testing, however, presents more opportunities to run afoul of GMAT rules. If your environment is non-compliant, your score may be canceled. If your internet is unstable, your score may be canceled. If you go on autopilot and reach for your phone, which in a test center would be fully out of the room and impossible to reach for, your score may be canceled. If you end up with your score under review, you still may not end up with your score canceled, but there is a good chance it'll at least be delayed. Verdict: while cancellation risk in general is probably overblown, test center still wins on this count. So, which one is right for you? Generally, I advise in-person testing. It's more reliable, and on balance, it ensures a more conducive test-taking environment. That said, if you live hours away from the nearest test center, or the available time slots do not work for your schedule, or if the test center really does not work for you as a testing environment, at-home online testing can be a viable and more accessible option, provided you prepare appropriately. But of course, that's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you planning to take at home or in person? And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.